So, the continued adventures of upgrading the turntable and improving it. I've not been happy for quite some time with the bearing sleeve, or indeed the entire bearing arrangement on the Rega turntable. The problem that I've been having is that the turntable, the platter just doesn't spin for very long. This one, I don't know if that's coming across, but it just suddenly stops. It doesn't come to a stop, it just stops. Now then, this is the replacement subplatter from Iceni Audio. It is apparently nicely machined. I've said nice things about the way it's been designed before. But if we grab the original Rega subplatter, put that in, and try the same thing, it spins for quite a lot longer and comes to a generally smoother stop. But there's still a couple of little pauses there. It's better, but it's gripping somewhere, and I'm not happy with it. So, that being the case, what I did, I have this other bearing sleeve. That's the original one, actually. The one that's in there as a replacement. I tried a replacement, didn't help. This is the subplatter. What I did was I knocked out the center. I mounted this in my drill, smeared it with grinding paste, and actually ran it inside the bearing sleeve for a while. So I thought, okay, let's see if that helps. Let's reassemble that. Put it back in the sleeve. And give it a rotate. And that still comes to a definite stop. Now, when I was running it on the drill, I noticed that it was catching, and I've come to the conclusion, I can't measure it, but I've come to the conclusion that the spindle is not actually straight. I've had a bit of a chat with the commenters in the last video, and they've had this exact same subplatter before and had the same problems I did with there being ridging on the stem. This one's quite smooth because I've polished it. Oops, have that back. But when I first got it, it was very badly ridged. Now my feeling is that probably the CNC cutter is running too fast, and probably there's not enough after processing. It's just spun out and then shipped, I would say. I mean, I don't know because I'm not making and shipping the device, but certainly the finish on the product is not as smooth and shiny and good as the original Rega device. I'm not sure whether that's coming across on camera, and certainly, of course, this has been subsequently polished, but I can still feel some ridging with my fingernail that's just not present on the original Rega subplatter. And as I say, when I turn it in the bearing sleeve, I can feel this replacement unit catching slightly, which leads me to believe it's not quite straight. Now, I've had two of these. Patrick was very good. His aftercare is great. He's been very helpful, but at the end of the day, I've had two of these, neither was quite right. I chose the best of the two, but another commenter said that they had purchased one second hand and theirs was ridged, and I'm just not sure that the quality control is quite where it should be. I don't want to damage somebody else's business, but I think it's something that should be looked at. I think the design is great. I think the execution maybe needs a little looking at. And indeed, things may have got better since I purchased this a couple of years ago. But worth noting. So, neither of these things is working as well as I'd like. We can see that there is some problem with the subplatter stopping there. But as a result, oops, I need the bearing sleeve. As a result of smoothing out this sub-bearing bearing sleeve, this now spins so nicely with the original subplatter. It just doesn't seem to stop. It's chalk and cheese compared to the other one. So much smoother. Just the gentlest of touches. Just glides in comparison. So much nicer. And the problem was shown as well by the RPM monitor I have on my other phone. You could see as the turntable was spinning, it was slowing and then speeding up and then slowing and speeding up, always in the same place. This is so much better. So, as part of today's job, I will be transferring this bearing sleeve into my turntable. Now, the other thing I'm going to do today, or have a go at least, is I'm going to try and make an off-board motor mount. So I've got this 10mm acrylic disc, I've got some screws, and I've got some stems. So the idea is I'm going to set the turntable in its actual location, not on the kitchen table, and I'm going to offer up the stems and try and get it to about the right height where the motor would be if it was originally fitted, and thereby it'll poke through the hole at the right level to catch the subplatter and turn the turntable. And if, as inevitably must be the case, I've made the wrong choice, I can just move in a different stem height and get something that works. And if necessary, shim the turntable up and down as a whole, because I've got some spare washers. I can bring it up and down a level as necessary, so I can get it exactly where it needs to be. And this will completely decouple the motor from the turntable. That's my plan. Now, for those who will remember the earlier video, I've got this plate from which I suspended the motor, and it wasn't bad. This particular motor is it's not the greatest, it's quite noisy. The original motor burnt out through age, its replacement failed within warranty, so I thought I'd try a cheaper version, and it was the wrong decision. It's not great, it's quite noisy. I can't run it at the moment because it's not mounted. But yes, it's not a quiet motor. I'll probably go for the Rega 24 volt unit at some point. In the meantime, I'd just like to get this off-board motor set up and give it a go and see if it works out as I hope it will, and go from there. So that's today's plan. Now, the other thing that was being looked at was the possibility of damping down the noise on the glass platter, which does ring. Now, I did think that this nice elastic band might dampen that down a touch, but my experience has been, frankly, it's a waste of time. It makes absolutely no difference, but it was good to try and it was cheap. So the other question then would be, what might do the job? And I have found that this cork has actually made a hell of a difference. Probably the best thing I can do is mount this. The problem you've got then is striking it, but that is pretty much dead. Remove the cork and it rings. There's quite some sustain on there. Put the cork back. That fades away extremely quickly. It's worth doing a comparison against a felt mat. Now this of course is not the original Rega mat, this is a replacement. That actually does quite a good job. It definitely damps out. But I think the cork is definitely duller. No question. Much less sustain on the cork. So I would say the cork is superior to the felt, personally. There's other options I haven't tried, but at the end of the day, the cork works for me. I'm probably going to stop there. There's no point spending fortunes on various different mats. So that's probably as much as I need to do. So on with the drilling. So this is the motor that I purchased. It was half the price of the usual one that they all say is for turntable use, and it does not have the wires already soldered on. You've got to do these yourself. And I thought maybe that's why it was half the price, and I was wrong. But anyway, so the task here is to get the old motor out. And I have used this nice clamp to hold the turntable steady whilst I do so, because I do not want it to fall over and smash my arm to pieces. So, a little bit fiddly. One of the commenters suggested that using these metal screws would transmit noise into the upper deck, and on balance I think they were correct. Plastic screws would have been a better bet, but there you are, live and learn. But in any case, an off-board motor is probably a better solution overall. So I was never wildly happy with the original suspended motor design that Rega themselves subsequently moved away from. But the sticky-on-y pad thing probably would not have worked for this one, as I said in the last video, because this is just a thin layer of phenolic resin. There's no actual, there's nothing that will support the motor particularly well. There we are. Yeah, that's pretty much what I figured would happen. So yeah, just a very thin phenolic resin layer there. Not a lot of good as a support. So that can all come out. A few people said, hey, I don't like the red, but actually when the platter's on you can't see it. I like the red. So that's fine. Yeah, there's just the thinnest phenolic resin layer. That's not very strong. This chipboard would have been very strong if they'd just routed it a thinner layer. That would have been fine. But back in the day, the design was suspend the motor, and that was enough. But anyway, so I'm going to remove the 240 volt conversion circuit, and this appears to be the switch wire, which I shall desolder. That's the next job. Now the reason I'm doing this is because if I'm going for an off-board motor, I really want an off-board motor controller, because if I want to take the motor away for any reason. I don't want to be fighting with wires that are still connected to the main deck. And the whole point of this is to get everything away. Now, of course, I could, when I remake this, simply join the mains cable to the other side of where the switch goes, but the likelihood is I will forget how it was wired and cause myself problems in the future. So I'll probably just put a small bridging wire across these 2 points and reconnect the mains to exactly the same location as it started from. No point changing anything really. And then what I'll do is I'll put a inline switch on the main power cable. So now that's free. I can pull out the power cable and bring out the tray. So, and those are just the switch wires, which can just sit in there. It doesn't matter. They won't be in the way. I'll probably maybe have to tape them in or something of that nature, but we'll worry about that later. Okay, so I'm just going to try and pump out some of this old solder just because it's going to make life easier pushing the new wires in. Oops. Always a fiddly job. Should make life a little better. It's not the best situation for working on like this, but it'll do. Okay. I didn't bother filming the soldering because frankly it took too long and it was such a pain in the neck. But the motor is turning, which is always a plus. I've just mounted the original circuit board back in the original plastic holder. It gets the contacts away from my fingers. This is the switch bridge here, the red wire, and there's the motor. You can hear it slightly. It's not quite just, but that's going. It's just a temporary fix so I can get my turntable running. Next thing we need to know is the distance across those screws, which, using my calipers, comes out at 60 mil. Sorry, yeah, 60 mil. Oops. This bit doesn't need to be super accurate. I'm just going to measure across the disc, draw a line rather, and I'm going to be off center because when the bands are pulling, I want plenty of foot that way resisting the forces. So just so long as I've got 60 mil in across the line, that's fine. So we're going to go about here, and then I know that I want 60 mil, so I'm going to go, where are we? 95, so coming about 15 or thereabouts, and then measure to 60 mil there. Just offer up the mode to make sure it looks about right. Yeah, I think that'll do. And it's time to drill. slightly off, it doesn't matter. I'll just offset the next one. Hope for the best. Now I'm using countersunk polypropylene screws, so I'm going to countersink these screw holes. Lovely. So here you see the basic idea. These are M4 screws and they're just a little bit tight. But they will go. That's all it really needs. Now I've got different stem heights. These are the 35s, I've got 40s, and I can just bounce them up and down as necessary. There we go. Reasonably stable. A little bit of movement, but not bad. I might try it without the washer, see if that's any better. But the other thing I'm going to do is put some sorpothane dots underneath as well, just to take out any vibrations going downwards. And that should basically do it. So, out comes the old bearing. Sorry for the wobble. There we go. The rubber ring may do nothing whatsoever, but it's worth a try. I don't think it'll do a lot of harm. That looks to be tight enough. And follow it with another rubber ring behind. There we go. Right, so that's all changed in. That's the much smoother bearing gone in. So, time to reassemble. So, here we are. We've all mounted. The height's very nearly right, not quite, but it's close enough. It has an interesting feature that you can, of course, adjust your belt tension by moving your whole turntable, which I hadn't considered, but it's a definite bonus. So if we put a belt on, set it running, voila, and as I say, just a little bit forwards, a little bit back, and get the tension that seems to work. Let's put the turntable on. Do without the mat. Let's close that door because you can hear the fridge. So, on we go. A little bit of slip as it starts. Lovely and quiet. and that's with the noisy motor. That's pretty good. So, very slight adjustment to the height, but I'm pretty happy with that. So the key test, of course, is how accurate is the speed control. And it's not bad, within 0.1 of an RPM overall. It was certainly varying wildly previously. It's a little bit on the slow side, but as I say, this is not the world's greatest motor, and I would hope that if I change to the 24-volt motor with the nice controller, I can probably get a little more accurate than this. But that's pretty good. Certainly a hell of a lot better than it used to be.